And would you believe I actually cooked my first ever roast chicken about 4 months ago?
Welcome to the first episode of 12 Days of Christmas Joy interview series 2024. You are in the right place if you fancy some inspiration and joy in your life. We all know the world is in a bit of a state at the moment with lots of bad news coming at us from every angle, the environment, how we produce our food poverty. There's so much going on. It can feel a little overwhelming and unsettling. And I think it's really easy to feel powerless and think, well, what as an individual can I do on such a big issue? So I'm really excited today to be kicking off the interview series in style with none other than award-winning author Jenny Jefferies, who is passionate about farming, fishing, food in the UK and around the world. Hello, Jenny. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, Jenny Jefferies is a South Cambridgeshire based farmer's wife, mother of two girls, and award winning author of her book that she launched earlier this year, Islands in a Common Sea. And I have a copy here, which is all about stories of farming, fishing, and food around the world. She is also a columnist, radio producer, presenter, an ambassador with Love British Food, EcoU, and Farmers Guardian. She is a member of the Guild of Food Writers, a member of the Guild of Agricultural Journalists, writes a regular online article for Country and Townhouse magazine, a monthly food column for the Cambridge Independent, and writes regular articles for Rural Life magazine. I'm just amazed how you fit all of that in, Jenny. We might get some of your top tips on management, life management later.
I'll do my best.
Jenny thoroughly enjoys producing and presenting her own weekly radio show on Black Cat Radio called Your Voice, which is predominantly about food, farming, and fishing. So, first of all, Jenny, I want to say congratulations on winning the NYC Big Book Award for your beautiful book, Islands in a Common Sea, in the category of International Cookbook. How does that feel?
Oh, well, thank you so much for that introduction and many thanks for your congratulations. I'm just super surprised, super proud, and I'm really doing it for the contributors in the book. So I could not be more happy.
Brilliant. And can you tell us a little, what are the NYC Big Book Awards? Can you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, so they're the awards from New York City, and they collaborate and they share all these fantastic, phenomenal books all around the world, predominantly in America, but overseas as well. And they just really champion books, and I'm just really proud that Islands in a Common Sea has received this international recognition, which
Yeah.
I'm just so over the moon with it, because when you put something creative out in the big wide world, you do have a sense of vulnerability a little bit, and you're opening yourself up to criticism, feedback, what other people think of it. So to have that accolade and to have that credibility, it's like a big pat on the back. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
so
brilliant.
well done. Congratulations. Well, it is a really, really beautiful book. So I'm really interested in so for people who haven't seen Jenny's book, each is a little bit about a farmer and someone who produces food and then some of their recipes. So it's a really holistic way of looking at food, isn't it? Which I find really interesting. How did you find the people to feature in this book?
So the main premise of the book is that a farmer's and a fisherman's challenge and solution on this side of the world is very similar, if not the same, to those on the other side of the world. So I had to be really careful in producing a variety of different produce, different food groups, different geographical locations, and having all continents represented, and as many countries as possible, which was quite limited because of the size of the book. So there's 25 contributors, and it's a mixture of my own individual contacts that I've made up over the years. For example, my old babysitter, who's now 86 years old, did a voluntary services overseas in Malawi, and I had the good fortune to visit Malawi, who's featured in the book. And also my parents, they went on holiday to the Hofmaran in Switzerland, and they got chatting to the manager for me on my behalf. And I knew that I wanted a dairy farmer from Switzerland because I thought the pictures would be really beautiful. So lots of ingenuity, but I do an awful lot of reading, a lot of research. So, as you do, I was reading the Middle Eastern Eye, the journal, and I came across this fantastic story about a beekeeper in Yemen. So I got in touch with the photojournalist, and it just went on from there. So all of these different connections and engagements is what I think what makes the world spin round. So a lot of different ways, a lot of people on social media. I unfortunately never had the opportunity to go and visit all of these places, but I've been communicating with them on Zoom. So I've been got a good relationship with Google Translate. And you'd often find me on my mobile phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, communicating with Australia and New Zealand and Japan and places like that. So I was very dependent upon translation, and it was very challenging having the different time zones and the different languages. But we got there, and
Yeah.
I'm very proud of it.
You
Yeah.
should be. Yeah, it is absolutely lovely. Did you have to narrow it down? Yeah, was it difficult to get that final tw 25?
It was definitely because it's like a rabbit hole. The minute you go down this rabbit hole, you just discover all these incredible, inspiring food producers doing wonderful things with food production all over the world. I mean, there's many more books that I could have done. I mean, I won't be doing any more books, but for the time being anyway. But yeah, it was really hard. But I think the main thing that I wanted to get across was the variation of different farming techniques, different fishing techniques, and different food production, which really not just produce nutritious food, but also helps look after the immediate environment and improves biodiversity and look after the planet as well as the people.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I just wondered if you have a favorite. Are you allowed to have a favorite? Is it like your children?
I don't have a favourite. There are some really lovely little stories in there. It's not just recipes showcasing their country and their food, but also stories about what they do, how they do it, and why. So there's a organic farmer from Japan who's been farming regeneratively for 44 years. There's the salmon sisters from Alaska who fish wild salmon. I mean, there's just such. I mean, I hope the the contrast and the variation of all the different stories comes across in the book. So I don't have a favourite. Yeah, you'll have to get the book and come up with your
Yeah,
own.
absolutely. Well, I've got a favorite because
Oh, brilliant.
I've had a look. I really like the stories about the women. They're in Japan, I think, who go diving.
Oh,
The
in South Korea. Yes.
South Korea. Okay,
Yeah.
yes, the
Yeah.
women in South Korea who go free diving with no equipment and they dive down to huge depths and yeah, get what they can. Kind of they catch it with their hands, it seems like, you
Yeah,
know.
it's very primeval, very sort of old and medieval. I mean, the story goes back to these high-in sea diving women. It used to be predominantly a man's occupation, but when they discovered technology and they had greater opportunity off the island, the men would go off to the island, leave the women and the girls to do the sea diving. And they would literally free dive about to a depth of about 25 meters to get these fantastic seafood. And it is sustainable. They only allow to take fish and seafood, well, predominantly seafood, abalones, which is like a sea snail. which is predominantly found off the shores of South Korea and North America. And they're only allowed to take them if they're over a certain size, and they're always replenishing stocks. And it's such a phenomenal way of getting the food we love from the sea. I mean, they're literally risking their lives to do it every day.
I
And
know.
it's giving, this book is giving women a voice whose voices are often go unheard. So really championing these phenomenal women all over the world, but especially in South Korea.
Yeah, and it's really in what I find fascinating is thinking about the like you're talking about the sustainability of so how we can eat this nice food without and keep it coming because it's also in our interest to be able to keep fishing it, isn't it? Keep eating all of this beautiful food. So really thinking about how we get our food because I think we are very detached these days from where our food comes from. You know, it all comes in a plastic packet,
Yeah.
and we're very removed from how it's made and grown and so and I know this is something that you're quite interested in. So what is the importance of food provenance, you know?
It could not be more appropriate and more important at this delicate time. And you're right, I think as a generation, we have, particularly in the Western civilization, we have become so disconnected with food provenance and simply where our food comes from. And the thing about the food producers in the book, Islands in a Common Sea, is that they're all regenerative. So it goes one step further than just being sustainable. It's, you know, looking after the immediate environment, improving biodiversity, and looking after our fish stocks. And when we talk about sustainability, we need to start talking about the sustainability of our fishing communities as well as the actual produce from the sea. There's no one in the world that finds sustainability more important, particularly specifically in fish and seafood industry, than the fishermen themselves, because it's in their own interests. And so, you know, with the Hainyo sea diving women, you know, they want to hand it down to their future generations. But I fear that that culture is dying out a little bit. But yeah, let's just hope for the best and hope that they're still around in years to come.
Yeah, so I think we can all maybe just think a little bit about, you know, what we're buying, just and buy local things and from artisan food producers. And even if you can just add in one little thing, that the impact of that can be quite a lot when it's done with a lot of people, but you only have to make a little bit of a change, I think, don't you, in
Yeah.
your shopping habits, maybe to make that impact, to begin the change process.
Yeah, and I think there's an awful lot of pressure, on you and me and the other consumers and people listening to this, to change their shopping habits. And I think
Yeah,
there's very much that can be done from the ground up. And I would hope that at some point policy might improve, food policy,
yes,
and government and bold enough politicians to make that implementation happen and work for the top down, and eventually we will hopefully meet in the middle.
yeah,
But there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done. But I'd urge anyone with Christmas coming up, you know, to shop, buy local, buy independently, buy sustainably, and above all, if you're in this country, buy British.
yes, absolutely. I totally agree. Before we pick up on the buy British bit,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to show you again Jenny's beautiful book because what I really love about it is it's as a designer, it's so wonderfully designed. It's a pleasure to hold. It feels really lovely and heavy, and I love the matte production, the pages, and as you can sort of see there's some beautiful photographs in the book as well. So I think this will make a great Christmas present. I might keep mine, but
Thank you so much. That's very kind. It will also double up as a doorstop because it is quite big. So
is but it's really really wonderful. So if you need some ideas, and I think it would be lovely for anybody who's interested in food culture, in traveling, you know, traveling around the world, who's interested in not just cooking. It's not just a book for somebody who loves to cook. I think they would love it, but I think it's also for, you know, would be
Yeah.
lovely for other people as well. So just to then go back to buying British. And so, what do you love about British food? You're a farmer's wife in Cambridgeshire. What's
Yeah, I'm a farmer's wife in Cambridgeshire, and I just think it's just so important to support our British food producers, especially our farmers and our fishermen and women. And I think it's just hugely important to know where your food comes from. I think for one to really enjoy food, one has to understand where it's come from. And I will never forget seeing the family harvest for the first time in the summer of 2014. I had never before seen a real life combine harvester until I met my arable farming husband John on a blind date, but that's another story. And so I'm just really grateful for all the hard work that farmers and fishermen do every day to put food on our tables. And it's as simple as that. And I think
yeah,
to really support them, find out where your food comes from, go to the farmers markets and the independent food shops, and
yeah.
really support them. It's so important because without them, there's simply no food.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Christmas, for me, one of the big things is what we eat, cooking. I love all of the Christmas food that we have. What's your favorite Christmas recipe?
My favourite Christmas recipe is literally a roast capon and all the vegetable side dishes that go with that. So my husband usually does the cooking for the main part of the day, and it's just a simple capon, which is poultry, which is slightly smaller than a turkey, but slightly bigger than a chicken. But I believe, in my opinion, it's more flavoursome. And then just with all the, the fantastic roasted sprouts with bacon, cabbage with lots of butter and pepper on it,
Oh,
and roasted carrots and broccoli, roast potatoes. I leave the skin on the potatoes, and I don't parboil them beforehand. I just put them in the oven,
yeah.
and my children love it. So that is my favourite recipe because everyone can do it. And would you believe I actually cooked my first ever roast chicken about 4 months ago? I've never done a roast before then, because I don't come from a cooking background at all. I've taught myself. I never used to be able to boil an egg when I went to university. I was a bit hopeless. But I've taught myself, and it's actually one of the most straightforward meals that you can do. And I think my husband's got the best deal. He always does the cooking on Christmas Day, and he stays in the kitchen with a bottle of wine, and he does the cooking. So he does the glory cooking. And then what I love about Christmas is that everybody contributes everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a real family affair where everyone is valued and everyone has something to do, which is lovely.
Fabulous. Yeah. I was going to ask you if you've got any funny food stories, but I think, I don't know if you can top not being able to cook an egg.
I know, it's very shameful, but I think it's a similar story for a lot of people. You know, when I went to university, there were a lot of us who didn't know how to cook actually.
Yeah.
And it's a similar story, and I think it's quite common that people don't know how to cook.
Yeah.
We are just inundated with just an amazing amount of ultra processed food and ready meals and food delivery companies that deliver recipes all made out for you. You just got to put it together. So there's lots of convenience food that is so convenient, it almost puts an obstacle in the way of learning how to cook and how to fend for yourself. And I've just taught myself and learned how to do it over the years.
Brilliant.
And being a mum, I find cooking a bit of a chore, if I'm honest with you, because I'm cooking the same dishes every week.
Yeah.
Christmas and opportunities where friends and family can come and join us. That's what I love the most about food, is the
Yeah.
bringing of everyone together.
Exactly. Yes. It's a real way, a great way to connect, I think, isn't it, with other
Yeah.
people? Like I love sitting around my kitchen table. And yes, I also think that there's a lot of, I love watching MasterChef and Bake Off. And I think sometimes it can be a bit off-putting and make people think, oh, well, I can't do that. That's not available to me, and I'm a big believer in keeping things really simple and really straightforward, and you can make delicious food by keeping it simple. And I was just looking in your book because there's some of the recipes in here are so simple. Like so this king clip, grilled king clip, you can see there's like a handful of ingredients and I don't know, like 4 or 5 lines of instruction of how to cook. So I think keeping it simple is really makes it accessible, hopefully, for
Yeah.
people to try and have a go. And it doesn't have to be so serious. You can leave that to the master chefs and the Great British Bake Off.
No, I can't watch those programs. I can't watch as much as I like them. I can't watch Bake Off or MasterChef because the time just stresses me out. And I think for a lot of people, that might be the only opportunity they get to see cooking and baking happening. And I think
Yeah,
it can be quite off-putting because it doesn't have to be like that. It
yeah,
doesn't have to be under pressure or under a
yeah,
time constraint. And I think there should be, there's a new way of cooking, which is the old way of cooking, which is just doing it whenever you like and
yes,
keeping it simple. And you don't have to do fancy stuff like all the master chefs. It's lovely to see
exactly.
other people do that, but I
Yeah,
think yourself in your own kitchen, just keep
exactly.
it simple,
I'm a
definitely.
big fan of a wonky scone, I have to say.
Yeah. And a wonky carrot,
Yeah.
definitely.
So,
Lovely.
Jenny, just to finish up, thank you so much. But you fit so much into your life. I'm wondering, Christmas is a really busy time and everyone seems to have a lot of things to fit in. Have you got any top tips you can give us as to, how we can, are you really good at time management? Are you really good at saying no to what you don't want to do? How do you fit everything in?
Well, up until now, I have been saying yes to everything. And I've realised over the last couple of weeks that now is the time when I need to pick and choose and start saying no, which is a really hard thing to do, actually. But when my children are at school, I've got 6 hours to fit everything in. And then often I'll be in bed on my mobile phone once the children are asleep. And I don't look at it as work. It is something that I love to do so much. I really believe in what I do. I love what I do, and I love the people that I connect with. So I don't see it as work. So it's just like a lovely way of life, really, that I wouldn't change for the world. And I just feel so incredibly grateful and lucky that I'm a farmer's wife, and it is a way of life. It definitely has its unique challenges, and I think with anything, you just got to plan. And I've got this calendar where I just put everything in, and that is my go-to every day. If it's not in the calendar, it's not happening. But my top tip for Christmas is to shop independently. Find out your independent local businesses because more often than not, they're run by families and they could do with your support.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jenny. I want to just wish you have a lovely, lovely Christmas, and thank you so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.